here is how billionaires or millionaires avoid taxes in Italy. First of all, they want to run a business in Italy, so they establish an SRL, which is the correspondent limited liability company in the Italian territory. The corporate tax of this is 28%, which is composed by 24% IRES tax plus 3.9% of IRA. So this is how you pay taxes in Italy with an SRL. But how do they manage to squeeze these taxes? And how do they manage to squeeze their dividend? Well, it's simple. They simply establish a holding company in another European country. Keep in mind, it has to be a European country. So this is an EU holding company. Why? Because an holding company in EU can benefit from a special tax regime, which is called PAX regime, which allows to pass the dividend from the Italian SRL to the holding company at 0%. The second step is to add another layer with a trust, which is still established in another EU country or in the same EU country, but the important thing is they will pick up an EU country which basically allows you to pass the dividend from the holding to the trust at 0% as well. And then the most important point here is to have a trustee, which is basically the guy that is managing the trust, which doesn't specify any beneficiary. So it's called a trustee with no specified beneficiary. With this type of trust here, you can assign an Italian beneficiary, which is our guy, basically tax-free, with no tax to pay. With all this structure, you have avoided the dividend. Now, the second step is how do they get rid of the corporate tax? Well, in 2024, the Italian government established a new tax regime, which is called the CPB tax regime. If you have a revenue which is less than 5 million euro per year, you can apply for this tax regime for 2 consecutive years. Okay, so here how it works. You can apply this tax regime for 2 years with your company which is established in Italy. So this company is an Italian one. For 2 years, you can ask the Italian tax agency to freeze your revenue and freeze your taxes. So the SRL here will pay taxes only on an agreed revenue, which is the virtual one, which is not the real one, thanks to this tax regime. And if for the first year of activity you have kept your revenue as low as possible, so for the first year your revenue has been like only 10,000 euro, then the Italian tax agency will ask you to pay for the following 2 years under the CPB regime only 20,000. They will assume only 20,000 euro in revenue, where the corporate tax will be still 28% on these 2 revenues. But since you have freeze your revenue, which is a virtual one, you can actually, for real, have 5 million euro in revenue instead of 20,000. Now you will still pay 28% corporate tax of 20,000 rather than 5 million, which basically makes a huge gain in profit. Here you can basically pay only 5,600 euro, because 28% of 20,000 is 5,600 euro, which makes basically over 5 million, only a tax pressure of 0.11%.